let's do that quickly. So let's see who is here and gets the whatnot back.
I did a lot better than I thought it was. And I'm trying with it.
And remember too, like this is like the exam is only like it's only worth 10% of your total grade, right? So it's not the biggest part of what we're doing here. And I want to remind everybody too, if this takes a little bit of stress off the paper, that I'm going to give people a chance to revise, right? So you turn in the paper, I'm going to grade it over the next couple of days. If you're not happy with the grade, you can revise for a better one. Right? And I will give people instructions on how to do that next week when more people are likely to be here. All right, so let's just take a minute. We'll go over the exam. Again, like on the whole, everybody did really well on the essay questions. I was actually really impressed with your responses by and large. They were thoughtful, they were well written, they were well constructed. If people got dinged for something, it might have been for maybe a minor factual error or misunderstanding, or in some cases, people, like each of the questions ask you to refer to at least 2 texts, right? If you only really wrote about one, you might have got dinged on that too. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, essay questions went just fine. And we're good. So let's just go over the vocab words. And then you guys can ask me any questions that you want to. Okay, so Caliban. Damn it. Welcome, my wife. We'll just leave it in. All right, who or what is Caliban? Yeah, I noticed a lot of you put fishman. This is because Stefano, when he first finds him, says like, "Is this a fish?" Right? But does the play itself ever actually physically describe Caliban?
No.
And yeah, his appearance is actually kind of left open to interpretation. Right? He is at least human-like enough that it occurs to him that he might mate with Miranda, right? But yeah, I didn't take off points if people said fishman, because again, Stefano does say fishman. Yeah, but what's more important about Caliban? What is?
He doesn't look quite human.
Okay, yeah.
He doesn't really know English.
Okay.
Because he's
He has a spirit that serves us by God, and then I can choose things for him. He's the one who tries to take away his innocence and stuff.
Yes. All right, good. And what text is this attached to? Yeah, to the Tempest. And our author.
Shakespeare.
Yep. Good. One William Shakespeare. Good. All right. What about Nicaea? Only a few of you went for this one. Those of you who did got it right.
That's the familial, that's the homosociality word, right?
It is a Greek word.
It's the summoning of the dead.
Yes. Nicaea is summoning and questioning of the dead.
Oh, okay. I knew there were like 3 different Greek words.
Yeah. It's related to the idea of katabasis, right, which is that journey through the underworld, right? Nicaea is specifically the summoning of the dead. And what texts might this be applied to?
Alice and
Yeah. The most obvious would be the Odyssey, but it also applies to the story of Duban and the Arabian Nights, right? Good. Terror versus horror. Most of you got this right, but there were a couple of you who got the definitions right, but mixed up the two terms. So what is terror?
That's the Scooby-Doo horror. Or the
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo guy.
Yeah, exactly. The horror is Scooby-Doo guy, terror is Scooby-Doo guy, right? There's a rational explanation, right? It's Old Man Withers in a costume. So what's horror? How does horror compare to terror?
That's the supernatural. That's the thing you can't explain.
Exactly, yes. And a horror text, in horror gothic, the supernatural events are to be taken as real, right? All right, good. And what text does this most apply to?
Frankenstein. It kind of meshes the two.
Kind of meshes with what?
Meshes both terror and horror as well
Yeah.
as male and female gothic.
All right, good. Fisher King.
I don't think I wrote that one, but I do remember it's
We just talked about it yesterday. It
He's
was
weird.
the king in the boat, and he was castrated, and if
that's what I see in Braille for the most part.
Percival had asked him who is the
Yeah.
Grail for, he would have gotten back his kingdom.
Yep, and Percival's failure. And the text and the author?
Story the whole world, how do you say it? Something visualize.
Chrétien de Troyes.
Chrétien de Troyes, yes. Good. All right. Moving right along here.
Ah,
What's in the header?
finished.
Sorry? Oh, sorry. I'll go a little slower then with the next set.
Slow down.
All right, abject. What is abject?
Something that's horrifying.
Yeah, we associate the abject with horror, right? What's horrifying about the abject?
It's like something to do with the monster. I don't
Yeah.
know the exact definition. Like Halloween. I know it has to do with monsters.
Yeah, it's the recognition of something that is almost or formerly human, right? So like the horror that we see in observing a corpse, for example, right? It causes fear in us because we recognize it as something that was human, right? You know, if we see like dismembered parts of the human body, or even something like discarded hair or fingernail clippings, right? The kind of horror or disgust we feel is because we recognize this as having been human, part of the body, right? So it's a horror based on recognition of a relationship to humanity or to the human body. And we could probably apply this to a couple of texts, right? What texts could we apply this to?
Frankenstein.
Yeah, Frankenstein, again, is probably the most obvious, right? The monster. Being literally made out of sewn together, mismatched dead body parts, right?
Caliban and Ariel.
Okay, yeah, Caliban and Ariel, Caliban especially, right? So yeah, we can also relate this to the Tempest. Where else might we see an example? Have we seen an example of the abject?
It's a little looser, but Gulliver in Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah. The horror that he experiences, the disgust he experiences at observing the Yahoos, right? He doesn't immediately understand it, but yeah, the horror that he feels is based on recognition. All right, Orientalism.
Everyone has something to do
Yeah, okay, so you get it, yeah, it's the study, right, specifically of Asian cultures, right, by Western scholars. What else is important to remember about Orientalism as a concept?
Anything in Oriental society is opposite to European society, and usually in a bad way.
Yeah, there's a kind of projection that goes, or a projection of negative stereotypes. From the West. All right. And what text would this be most relevant to?
Arabian Nights.
Yeah. Good. What is the matter of Britain?
Sort of a subgenre to the romance. Specifically pertaining to King Arthur and his round table, his circle of knights.
Exactly. And text and author here should be fairly obvious, right? Story of the Grail, Chrétien de Troyes. One thing that I do want to remind everybody about too, like a couple of you who chose the Chrétien terms wrote story of the Holy Grail. Remember that in Chrétien, the Grail's not holy yet, right? It seems to be some kind of magic serving dish that is just as closely related to like the old Celtic cauldron of plenty as anything to do with Christian iconography, right? Except for those weird church paintings with the Virgin Mary holding the weird serving dish. Okay. This is another one that very few people attempted, but I think it is an important concept to understand, especially since it comes from Tolkien's work, and he is so important as not just a writer, but also as a theorist of fantasy. Does anybody remember what eucatastrophe was?
It's a good terminology.
Yeah.
Something really good happens.
Yeah, literally good catastrophe in Greek, right? So the eucatastrophe is the sudden, unexpected, joyous turn. In a text, right? The unlooked for happy ending. So what text did we discuss this in terms of? Yeah, we talked about this when we talked about the Arabian Nights. You can probably apply it to others, but a lot of what we've been looking at least lately, has been pretty dark, right? You could probably apply this to, we didn't directly apply this to Goblin Market, but you could probably apply Laura's Cure by Lizzie. Or you could probably apply this term to Laura's Cure by Lizzie as well, right? The eucatastrophe. Although I think I also did say not to worry about Goblin Market for the midterm. I don't think I actually tested about Goblin Market. Okay. Everybody got what they need here. Can I get rid of this? All right. Okay, so last row here. Luigi Galvanic.
He was the Italian scientist that Mary Shelley was experiment on.
Yeah, he's the guy with the kicking frogs legs, right? And yeah, Mary Shelley saw his experiments, his public experiment when she was a child, right? So yeah, so this is, again, connected. Most of you remembered this. It seems to me that Frankenstein was still pretty fresh in everybody's minds, generally. All right, Lilliput and Blefuscu. Yep, they're the islands of little people. And what are they stand-ins for?
England and France.
Yeah, they're allegorical stand-ins for England and France. Right, Lilliput is England and Blefuscu is France. And what's their dispute over? Yeah, which end of an egg to crack, right? We have the little enders and the big enders. Swift's comment on the ridiculousness of 18th century religious disputes.
I know that Swift was a Tory.
Mm-hmm.
He was partially Irish with English descent, and he was in the church. I can't remember if he was Catholic or Protestant.
He was not. Anglo-Irish typically means Protestant.
Okay, so...
And specifically usually means Church of Ireland. So Anglican, but in Ireland.
Okay, but he was also Irish, but he also was Protestant, even though a lot of Irish were just, despite of England, were Catholic. But he himself, since he was Anglo-Irish, is Protestant.
Exactly, yeah. So, Irish people of English descent typically were Anglicans. The majority of the native Irish population was Catholic. So that's how the religious divide worked in Ireland. In fact, I was going to say still works, but I mean, the church is not nearly as powerful and influential in Ireland as it used to be. All right, mirror stage. Most of you got this mostly right. Or came close. What's the mirror stage?
It's the stage where, in development, where a child will see their reflection and recognize themselves.
Yeah, and the important thing there, the key thing there, is that they recognize themselves as a separate being, right? I recognize myself as a being separate from mother and separate from all the beings, right? So it comes after that imaginary stage in Lacan's theory of development, where you don't see yourself as a differentiated being. And most of you did know at least where to place this, that this was most relevant to the creature's experience in Frankenstein. Okay, last one. And I imagine everybody can get this, right? What are yahoos? Yeah, essentially naked feral humans, right? And they appear in... Yes. Okay. So, does anybody have any questions about the exam or about the paper?
That's not what the goal is trying to
Did I miss that or did I find it?
Well, no, because I already said that it was written by Jonathan Swift, so I guess you just figured out that I was accidentally.
Any other questions about the paper or about the exam? And when we get to the final, we will, I will do a voluntary review day, right? So, we'll take a day early in the finals period when, we'll maybe just sit for an hour and we can talk through vocabulary words and through concepts from the course and things like that, so that people feel comfortable with it. So I take it that the fact that most of you appear to be packing up means that there are no questions. All right, go work on your papers.